So lab number one. Lab number one, I asked you to change the existing program to do a couple different things. One, that this program, which currently outputs 5 stars, outputs 10 stars instead of just 5. And then also that there's a space and that there's a tab between each star. So looking at this program, you can see that it outputs 5 stars, so this should be 10 instead. This will make it so it prints out 10 stars in a row. There's 10. And if you want to put a space in between, you could just put a space in there. And if you want to put a tab, you could put 4 spaces. Or if you want to, there's actually a special character you can put in to put a tab in, which would be \T. And that'll also put a tab in. The difference between \T and putting 4 spaces is that tab, the number of spaces in a tab is sometimes different per operating system or per user computer, or like just, there's a lot of different ways that it can change. So by using /T, you're always using whatever the user wants for tab. Okay. All right, so that's lab number one. Lab number two, if you ran it, it printed out 5 rows and 7 columns. So it had a block of this. And what I wanted you to do was change it so that there's a square of 100 stars. So that means there's a 10 by 10 block of stars. So I know I want 100 stars. All I have to do is do this 10 times, 10 rows, and 10 columns. And that'll print me out a block like this. All right. The next one was output 2 rows of 50 stars each. Since this first outer loop controls the rows, and this inner loop controls the columns, and I want 2 rows of 50 stars each, I just change the outer loop to be 2 and the inner row to be 50. And just my 2 rows of 50 stars. And so the program outputs 2 columns of 20 stars each. And I just kind of flip that around. Okay. I want to take a little bit of time here to ask, like, how would I change this so that I would print out like a staircase-looking pattern? How would I make it so that it prints out a staircase of, let's say I want 10 rows with 1 star in the first row, 2 stars in the second row, 3 stars in the third row, and so on and so forth. Does anyone know? The trick here is that this still controls the number of rows. The number of columns, though, I can have it based on the row that it's on. So if I have it based on, like, I can use the variable I inside the inner loop, and now I can get something that the number of columns is based on the number of rows that I have, right? I could do that. What if I wanted to print out the reverse staircase? I could change this. I could start with 10 stars in the first row and then no stars in the last row, right? Okay. So you can actually use the variable here that you were using to loop through to change the number of rows. You can even multiply this by 2, so you have twice as many stars in each row as the previous one, meaning with 0. All right. Just some interesting things you can do. What if I want to skip every other column inside? I want to skip every single intermittent star. Yep, module 2. So based on every row, I can skip every other row, which means that I get 6 rows here. Or I can skip every other column, like so, by putting a condition here. Skipping every other column, just, little things you can do inside a loop to change it. All right. Okay, so lab number 3, I gave you guys kind of a monster fighting program. So this monster fight is it's kind of a very simple fighting game where you pick an attack, the monster has an immunity to an attack every round, and whoever basically wins based on the immunity. So unfortunately I picked magic and the monster had an immunity to magic and they hit me, so now I have 90 health. And every round you pick an attack, and the monster has 65 health, I have 47. And I actually killed the monster here, and so it tells you that you win. That's how the game works. So I want to change a few things about this lab. First is I want to change so you have the 50% chance of getting hit instead of always getting hit. The key here is that you kind of have to find where you're taking damage. And so if you look closely on line 67 through 71, this is actually the area of code that is responsible for subtracting from player health here. The way this whole thing is organized is that I declare some variables at top, and I have a big do while loop that loops over the fight. I have some smaller loops inside to verify choice, but here is where the damage gets dealt to the player. So if I took this whole thing and I wrapped it in an if statement, and I flipped a coin, which is I did a modulo 2, half the time this will be equal to 0 and half the time it will be equal to 1, which means I will only take damage half the time. If I dodge it, I actually want to print out like so. So I put an else condition here if I ended up dodging the attack. You can also flip this, so you can put this as the else condition and put the dodging here. It doesn't really matter. Either way will be fine. But now when I run it, about half the time I should be dodging it. Right here I dodged it. And sometimes I'll still take damage, and so the monster attacks me and I now have 91 health. Okay. Alright, lab number 3. Number 2, I want you to specify the player level, and the health will scale with the player level. Right now the player health is always 100. Instead, initialize this as 0. You ask the player, what is your level? Input that here, and then you can change player health to be equal to player level times 5. So you can make this fight very easy for yourself now by giving yourself a huge amount of HP. I have 4,995 health now. It's kind of like you going back to a level 1 zone and like killing level 1 monsters. You're basically that high level. So I have my player level here, which is now what I can also use to adjust the damage. So I want the damage to scale with a level. So I want it equal to be a range of 10 plus player level to 20 plus player level. So I want to make sure that this right here is where I'm dealing damage to the monster. Right here where you see monster health minus equal damage, the damage is being calculated already between 10 to 21. I want to add the player level on top of that as a minimum damage requirement. So what my player level is directly affects how much damage I deal. It doesn't affect the range of damage I deal, just the minimum damage I deal here. And this is dictating the range. So if I have a level of 100, I will be guaranteed to deal at least 100 damage, and I kill him in one hit. You can see here. Okay. All right. Last one is I want you to add a 4th attack called Sacrifice. This one is an attack the monster cannot be immune to, and also you lose 10 health every time you use it. So really you're just adding another option here. This is an old Diablo 2 move, by the way. The Paladin used to have a Sacrifice move. Change this, add another one here. Make sure this choice is greater than or equal to 4. And here you can see the monster choice, this is what he has an immunity to. So here, you only deal damage if this monster choice, which is a number he rolls between 1 and 4, is not equal to the player choice. So this can be a number between 1, 2, 3, or it can actually be equal to 4 as well. But here, if it's equal to 4 and the player picked Sacrifice, I actually don't care what the monster choice was at all. So this if statement, there's a lot of ways you can do this. What I would probably do is add this condition onto this if statement here to let you deal damage to the monster even though he rolled an immunity to it. Okay? And the difference here is that if you rolled a 4, I want you to put an if statement here that says if you pick 4 as your choice, I also want you to take player health and subtract 10 from it. And probably print out something that says, like, hey, you took 10 damage, result of sacrifice. Okay? So now if you picked 4, you're going to ignore this condition. You're adding an additional OR. You're going to ignore this part and just do the sacrifice damage every time, no matter what. But you deal damage to yourself in turn. All right. So I take 10. I set my level to 10. I pick sacrifice. And it says here now, if I scroll up a little bit, I hurt the monster. He has 72 health. But I took 10 damage as a result of sacrifice. Okay? If I keep using sacrifice, most likely I'm going to die. It looks like I killed him before I actually died. But the first thing I do if I use sacrifice, I'll actually die because I just took 10 damage right away. Okay. All right, so I'm going to put this specific one, lab number 3. Oh, there's one more lab for number 4. But I'm going to put this one up on Zool so you guys have it. All right, let's do lab number 4. This is practice writing a function, several functions, but I kind of want to just go ahead and do this. So I just want you to write the frozen lyrics, but I want you to reduce duplication as much as possible. So the key to functions is that you write code once and you use it multiple times. So in this case here, I want to write a function that lets me print out the words let it go, and I want to use it 4 times. So the first thing is, one function called 4 times should produce the famous frozen lyrics, and the remaining function called once should produce the line can't hold it back anymore. So these functions are going to say let it go is my function prototype here. I'm going to make another one to say can't hold it back. Those are my prototypes, right? Remember what I said whenever I do this, I copy the prototypes, delete the semicolon, put the curly braces on. And all these functions really are doing is the type of function is void, which means it doesn't return anything. The name is here, and it takes no arguments. Okay, so that's what my function is going to do here. And my other function here, okay, so I have my functions that I've written. Now I just need to use them in my main function. And when you call functions that have void, all you're going to do is just put the name of the function, put a set of parentheses. And in this case, it takes no arguments. So here, I have my 4 calls to let it go. My 1 call to can't hold it back. And all these things do will be print out the lines, let it go, and can't hold it back. It just prints it out 4 times in a row. I can do this in a loop, remember? So I can write a loop to write let it go 100 times if I want to. You can put that function call anywhere, except in the case of void, you can't use it in an expression. That would mean saying 100 times. All right, so the second part of this lab was, I want you to ask for player level and spit out how much HP you have. This is very similar to the monster program. However, I want you to write a function to do this. Okay? So it's going to be print player HP based on player level. So let's update this. Let me put this up on Zool as well. Okay. So I'm going to write another function here that I gave you the prototype for at the bottom. You can just take this prototype here, the print player HP, and put it at the top of your file, and then implement it down here. And the way this function is going to work is all it's going to do is going to do a printout the level times, what did I say, 150? There you go. So I want you to ask for player level and then print out how much HP you have. Okay? I'm going to do one more example after this too. I'm going to do cout Okay, so I read that in, and I'm going to call my function, but I'm going to pass in a variable here, which is my player level. This player level is going to get put and carried into this level variable, and then get printed out here. So when I type in a level, like level 7, it'll print out my HP here. Okay. So this function takes one argument now, which is the level that you want to take. It still uses void to return. I can change this function. Instead of just printing it out, though, I can have it return your HP as well. So here's an interesting thing. I can change the void return type to be an integer here. And then I can return level times 150. And now I have my function not only printing out, but I can also use it in my HP. So I can create a variable called HP, assign it equal to this function now that it has a return type. Then I can use this HP You took 20 damage. Your HP is now HP. So I'm going to subtract 20 HP from it. And now you can see my player level, which was 7 before. My HP is 1050. I can have that function do some work and tell me what my HP is, and I can use that in a variable. All right. For those of you guys that are taking my next class, we're going to be doing a lot with functions next class. This is kind of just the first step. However, the final project does use functions. I'm asking you guys to write some functions to make tic-tac-toe. Okay? So let's go over that now. So in Zool, I want you guys to grab the final. There's an SDVA final project. So first off, there's an executable in here you guys should copy. And this executable looks like this when you run it. This is basically the finished final, the executable is. Okay? This is only for reference. You're not going to get the source code to this, unfortunately. But this is a fully functional tic-tac-toe. You can see how the board is updating. Yeah. And I can do row 2, column 0. And then row 1, column 0. I'll do row 0, column 2. And see how it actually detects the winner of tic-tac-toe? So this program is for reference. What I want you guys to do is, there's a final Word document. I basically broke down how to write this program step by step for you. Starting with, I give you guys also a starting point here. This tic-tac-toe board .cpp. Let me open this up in Visual Studio. This tic-tac-toe board.cpp file is very simple. This is basically the old tic-tac-toe lab we did in class, remember? Where we where it always just moved into one spot. So this is going to be your starting point. Okay? This is what your tic-tac-toe board is. You're going to turn it into something that looks more like this, like so, and then you can actually play. Okay. So the final document, it has a lot of pieces to it. You're going to have success with this final if you read carefully and follow the directions. I basically take you step by step how to convert the existing CPP file into a working tic-tac-toe board. Okay? So I even give you some examples of how to detect, like the case for winners. and how to validate player input. So the final is, you guys will have this week to work on this, and I want you guys to come in with the source code and a working executable of tic-tac-toe running. If you don't come to class with it done, I'm going to have you guys spend time in class to do it. However, if we do get done with everyone in class, I have a few activities planned for next week because it's going to be kind of last week of class. I don't want to have a lecture in there, so I'm just going to give you guys a chance in class to work on it. And I have a few things that I want to have for fun in that class. So